In the Wild West world of podcasting, where podcasts are dominated by hosts who deliver a below-average product, and each unlistenable podcast is trying to be like the next, there is one podcast that is authentic and genuine and continues to stand tall in its originality. Based on a passion for his guests, their work, and his love of podcasting, Derek Thomas and Monday Morning Critic Podcast get amazing, diverse, unique guests found nowhere else. They include Hall of Fame athletes, Academy Award winners, Golden Globe winners, Super Bowl champions, Emmy winners, award-winning authors, award-winning film score composers, directors, trailblazers, pioneers, and inventors. The variety and quality are endless. There is something for everyone. Derek Thomas is the hero you deserve. He's a silent guardian, a watchful protector. Welcome to Monday Morning Critic Podcast. Here is Derek Thomas.
My next guest has a wonderful filmography, most notably his performance in 1999's Green Mile was probably one he should have been nominated for, certainly one he should have won. He is one of the best actors on the planet. I consider him a friend. And this is our second take of part two of directors that he has worked for. His name is Doug Hutchison. Doug, welcome back. Part two of part two. Welcome.
Derek, thank you. Thanks. It's good to be back. And thank you for that very flattering introduction. I appreciate it.
No, and we've talked about the Academy, and I'm not going to, go over the beaten path again. But, I just, I was looking at the IMDb top 250 today, and they have Green Mile at, I want to say 24, and it's probably,
wow.
Yeah, but it should be a lot higher than that. But, no, I looked at, I'll never understand how they nominate people, who gets nominated, and so forth. But you definitely should have been. Yeah, that performance. Anybody who knows Stephen King, anybody who follows Stephen King, they know that you nailed that character, and that's not always the case with Stephen King movies or characters. People, miss the mark by a lot in many cases.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you. I mean that means a lot to me, but it's interesting. We already had a show on the Academy, so we don't have to rehash, our quandary about the whole, political aspect of it. But actually, and I'll send these articles to you if I can find them. I'm sure they're online. I actually have scrapbooks and stuff from that time. But Warner Brothers was actually pushing me for a nomination. And I have a few of their ads that when they were pushing me, and then something happened, and I think it was in-house at Warner Brothers. That's at least what I was told by my then manager, and probably assume happened. But they were also pushing Michael Clarke Duncan, and they were pushing both of us for Best Supporting, because they wanted, of course, Best Actor to go to Tom Hanks. And so anyway, I think somebody just finally went, wait a minute, what are we doing here? We're splitting our vote. If we're nominating two actors from one movie, we're splitting our vote. So they ended up deciding to go with one actor for Best Supporting out of the Green Mile, and they went with Michael. And it was, I won't lie, I was excited, of course, when it was all seemingly happening. But when they made that decision, I won't lie, I was disappointed. But I think they made the right decision, only because Michael not only put in an amazing performance, but it's very rare. If you look at the Academies, it does happen, but it's like Anthony Hopkins in Silence of the Lambs, etc. And that amazing actor in the Old Men,
No Country for Old Men.
No Country for Old Men. Who's that? Javier
Bardem.
Yeah. I think didn't he win or something? For that movie?
Yep.
Okay. So it does happen that they'll go for the quote unquote villain or bad guy in the movie. Denzel won for Training Day. You know, he played a corrupted cop, blah, blah, blah. So it does happen, but more often the winners are the ones who are playing the protagonists, the heroes, the sympathetic characters, the actors who are, like playing real characters like Capote and Jamie Foxx, you know, when he did Ray Charles and, things like that. So it didn't surprise me that faced with a decision, Warner Brothers, decided to go with Michael. So I was happy for Michael, but I really was. And we were all keeping our fingers crossed, but I actually have a pretty funny story about that, but maybe for another day, since we're going to talk about directors. But when we were at the SAG Awards, something kind of strange happened. I'll save it.
Okay, don't forget though.
No, I won't. No, I won't.
Yeah, and I was thinking of you. You were talking about some other actors, and Michael Fassbender in 12 Years a Slave, which is one of the best movies, historical movies ever.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he was nominated for. Yeah, so yeah, it definitely happens. But you're right. It's kind of rare for it to happen, though. It doesn't happen a lot.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
it is rare, but it does happen. So
Ricky Gervais was doing. He's by far the best host of any awards show. He's just because he's so just brutally honest, and he made a joke about producers buying those awards, whether it was the Golden Globe or something. He made a joke, and everyone was like, "Oh," like laughing, like everyone knows, like everyone knows it happens, but nobody wants to talk about it.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I love how he just lifts the rock. He lifts the stone and looks under it. It's worms and beetles scrambling around, trying to stay out of the sun.
And for those people that don't know, so this is our second attempt, because the first 3 minutes were recorded and then it just stopped. And I didn't realize it because I was paying attention to you and not my screen. And anyways, you mentioned two great directors, and I'm not going to say who they are, but there was some great points with both. And I will let you do the redo. And I'm looking at the screen; it is recording. We are good.
All right.
So yeah, let's pick up where we left off.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So I think I mentioned, like, I've been sort of going in chronological order with the directors that I've worked with, from beginning, until the last director I worked with last October, but, or not the last, but the most recent, I should say. And I neglected to bring up a director in our last episode, part 1. I don't know why I forgot about him. I shouldn't have, because I really had a great experience with him. His name's Keith Gordon, and most people would know him from being an actor. One of his many roles he played, which a lot of people would know him from, is the Stephen King movie Christine. When Keith was younger, he played the young creepy kid who got possessed by Christine, and was possessed by the car. And that was Keith Gordon, and he grew up and wanted to be a director, get behind the camera. And his very first movie was called The Chocolate War, and it's a movie based on the book by the same title, called The Chocolate War by Robert Cormier. Takes place in an all-boys reformatory school, and it's primarily about this annual tradition that the school has, where the students they're made to sell chocolates, and whoever sells the most gets an award or something like that. And the lead kid goes against the grain, and he's not going to sell the chocolates, and There's a whole underground gang called the Vigils, who kind of run the school in various ways. And anyway, this was Keith's first movie, and I went in. This was in 88, so this was right after Fresh Horses. I did Fresh Horses. I went in to audition for Keith, but he wanted me to audition for the lead in the movie, and I just didn't really feel right for the lead. It was eventually played by a young actor called, what was his name? Elan Mitchell Smith. He did a few movies. What was?
He did Weird Science.
Weird Science. That's it.
Yeah, he's a professor now, I think.
He is?
I think.
Holy
yeah.
mackerel. That's amazing. Yeah, but he didn't need me, and I wasn't right for the lead. So there's a role in The Chocolate War. His name's Obi, and he's kind of like the secretary of the Vigils, like the vice president. And he does the president's bidding and does all this crazy stuff, underground crazy stuff at the school. And in the book, Obi is described as this big, kind of huge, obese sort of character, and hulking character. And I went in, and Keith and I met. I hadn't known him before, and we chatted a bit. And he said, "Okay, well, are you want to read?" And I said, "Yeah, but Keith," I said, I really think I'd love to read for the role of Obi." And he kind of looked at me funny, and I could tell, his wheels were spinning. I'm not the physical manifestation of Obi in the book, and I'm sure he had that in his mind, when he was casting it. But, bless his heart, he gave me a shot, and I read for him, and I guess I turned him around in the audition, and he ended up casting me as Obi, even though I wasn't the physical, the best physical specimen for Obi if you went by the book. But I had a blast working with Keith. He was a very inspired young director, and we shot in this old abandoned school reformatory up in outside of Seattle, Washington, and just had a really great time. And then Keith went on to direct another movie based on a Robert Cormier book called Midnight Clear.
Right.
A Midnight Clear, about it's a World War II movie. And and then I don't know, I know he went on to direct some TV after that. I think he directed one of my favorite Netflix series called Better Call Saul. Actually, it's an AMC series that ends up on Netflix, but I think Keith directed one of those episodes, and maybe went on to direct some more television after that. I'm not sure. But anyway, Keith Gordon, yeah, kudos to Keith.
So a couple of things moving back, Doug. As far as Elon, how did you like working with Elan Mitchell Smith? Was he a good actor? Was he? How was your?
He was. No, he was great. The whole cast was great, with the exception, I would say, of Adam Baldwin. No relation to the Baldwin brothers, but Adam was an interesting character. He actually played like the kingpin of the Vigils, but he had just come off Full Metal Jacket. He played a role in Full Metal Jacket, and so he was a little bit full of himself.
Oh boy!
I should say. Where the rest of us were just there, to make a great first time movie with Keith. He sort of just showed up, and I don't know. It just felt like I think he felt like he was maybe what's the word? He was just a little bit above doing a small indie film with a first-time director, just having come off of Full Metal Jacket. But there's some funny stories about him. But we're focusing on directors in this episode, so we won't go there. But with the exception of maybe Adam, we had a great cast. Elon was a good kid. He was, he brought it.
I asked that because I had a casting director who, I want to say now it's 2 years ago. I had her in 2017. She did a casting for all those awesome movies in the 80s, specifically John Hughes. And I swore, Doug, that she said, and I'm going to feel like an ass if I get this wrong, but I swore she said that John Hughes was very, very hard on him. Elon, if that's how I say his name. He was very hard on him. Didn't like the way his look, his acting. He kind of was like, he kind of had to be talked into kind of sticking with him. And if I'm wrong in this, I'm going to be embarrassed. But I'm 90% sure on it. But like that John Hughes was pretty hard on him.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. I hadn't heard that.
Yeah, and by the way, so I was. I'm making my way to Keith Gordon. I was looking at as you were speaking. I was looking at Christine, right? Just to get I remember I was trying to get the character's name that Keith Gordon played. It was Arnie Cunningham, and I saw the mask for Michael Myers from Halloween. You know, the famous mask.
Yeah.
Do you know which actor's face that is? That's a famous actor's face. Do you know whose it is? Do you know the mask Michael Myers wears?
Yeah.
It's an actor's face that they used as a mold for an episode of a series this actor was in. It's William Shatner's face.
No, it's not.
I swear to God, and it's so off. This is crazier than the stuff we talk about off air, but I'm telling you, that is William Shatner's face. They used it. They were so, when they filmed Halloween, they were so, the budget was so strict that I want to say they had molds left over, something to that effect, and it's William Shatner's face.
It doesn't look like William Shatner.
Well, it is. I tell you what, you can Google it, and then you'd be like, Derek, you were right. All right. But let me work my way to...
But, I mean, when you watch Halloween, does it look like William Shatner's face?
No. I'm just saying... I should have IMDb'd Christine because it got me going on a couple different paths.
Oh, man.
I knew you'd appreciate that, but I'm telling you I'm right. But many people would recognize Keith Gordon from... Go ahead.
Wait a minute. William Shatner's face from Star Trek, or William Shatner's face from Priceline.com?
No, because it was from the early Star Trek. Because it was what was the first Halloween in the 70s or early 80s? Yeah, it's 100% his face. It was a budgetary decision, and they were like, hey, we got this mold of this. I'm telling you, I'm right. It's strange, but.
That is very strange. That is a very strange bit of trivia right there.
But most people would recognize Keith Gordon from Back to School with Rodney Dangerfield. That was an epic. That was an epic comedy. So, yeah, you were kind of in a hotbed there with some of your cast and the director and people. He's not one of these. He's very much, and I think you brought this up in the first interview. You may have touched on it. One of us did. But he's a little bit like Ron Howard, right? He kind of gets the actor's point of view, right? I mean, I think that's not a coincidence that you think fondly of him and he was in the same spot you were in front of the camera, right? So I think that he gets that.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think, not always, but I think it helps a director to have acted and understand that side of it, and Keith definitely did. I think that's probably the reason he opened his mind to allowing me to read for Obi, because he understands that different actors are going to bring different things to the table, and what does he have to lose? 5 minutes of his time,
right,
to let this actor read for a role that he wasn't initially up for in the movie, and then ends up casting me. You know, so good on him. I think. I think his acting background really helped when we were on set, and he
was a good actor. He wasn't like a cheap, like when you talk about 80s actors in those comedies, some of them were very cheesy. I mean, I like them all a great deal, but some of them were a little cheesy. Keith was not. Keith was talented as an actor. He wasn't.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
and he has a very specific look to him too, which, was always seemed appropriate for the roles he was playing. All
right, so let's make our way to number 2.
Number 2, Antoine Fuqua. Of course, he directed Denzel Washington in Training Day. Denzel won for Best Actor in that movie. Ethan Hawke was also in that movie and was nominated, I believe.
Do you know what people said? Do you know what people said about that movie, Doug? He was fantastic. I don't mean to interrupt you so early, but before I forget,
okay.
One of the things they said and I remember when I was watching the Academy when they came out with this, they thought, a lot of people felt that and I didn't feel this way, that the winning of Training Day for Denzel, and I think even Denzel might have said it. Boy, I'm making a lot of statements today. Prolific statements here, and I better be right on at least half of them. But they said it was kind of a makeup call, if you will, for the stuff that he missed out on, because I think he might have been slighted on Philadelphia and Glory. There was some. Yeah, he was slighted on a few of those. Where, I mean, he's been phenomenal in everything. And I was like, I see the logic in it, but anyways, I should have interrupted you. But Training Day is phenomenal. He's so. I mean, it's a fantastic movie nonetheless. But go ahead.
I mean, he's really an amazing actor, and I mean, in everything he does, he brings himself, his heart, I love watching him. I loved him in Man of Fire.
So good.
So many things, but Training Day was Fuqua on the helm of that movie, and then of course he went on to direct Denzel in the Equalizer movies, and but before that, Fuqua directed a movie called Bait with Jamie Foxx, David Morse, and myself in the leads, and I loved Antoine. I can't say enough about him, because after I was cast, he really gave me a long leash. I mean, he just let me run with this role. Anything I wanted, anything I needed. I had a certain look I was going for. He's like, go for it. I wanted to wear certain clothes that were against what the initial wardrobe folks wanted me to wear. They wanted to put me in something else, and I would just always, like a squealing little tattletale, go to Antoine and say, and start whining and say, no, I'm teasing, but I would go to him and just say, look, man, I don't feel right in these clothes, and he'd be like, wear what you want, man. Do what you need to do, and so he really gave me license and allowed me to feel liberated in this role and bring to the table what I wanted to bring, because he trusted my instincts, and I really appreciated that from him. And one of the things that stands out for me is a scene I had with Jamie Foxx, where my character is interrogating him. I have Jamie handcuffed to a chair, and I'm interrogating him. And see, you have to understand, back then, this is way before Ray, way before Jamie Foxx. Hold on,
before you tell this story, you told this the first time, and I found this amazing. Yeah. Amazing. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I just wanted to preface that, like, this was what I was kicking myself about most, because this story is awesome. What you're about to say.
Yeah, well, it's only awesome because of Antoine, because he knew. See, you have to understand, Jamie Foxx had never, ever, ever done. He was never in a film before, a motion picture. He had just come off the Jamie Foxx show, so he was known as a sitcom actor. And here he was thrown in with us, and I think Jamie was. Well, I don't think, I know so, and Antoine even confirmed it, that Jamie felt a bit, intimidated, oddly enough, by me, David Morse, the other actors who'd been in movies before. He'd never done it, and so kind of felt like a fish out of water in a sense. And at first you could sort of tell he was very stiff on the set. It wasn't feeling organic, and Fuqua was trying to figure out how to get in there, how to open the door. And so during this interrogation scene, Antoine pulled me aside and he said, "Listen, man, I'm throwing you in there, and I need you to wake him up. I mean, I'm seriously, Doug. Do what you need to do. I don't care if you go off script. I don't care what you do, but wake him up." And so after he gave me that permission, we start, doing the scene, and I can tell Jamie's not really there. He's in outer space somewhere. He's there physically, but he's not really in it. He's not in the scene of a man being chained up, interrogated. It just spilled hot coffee in his lap, and I'm about ready. I could fillet him alive.
So Doug, before you say the rest of this, how much of this, his attitude, is arrogance versus maybe nerves? Was it an arrogance thing, or was it was he nervous, you think?
I think that's a really good question, and I think it was a bit of both.
Okay.
But I do believe that Jamie, he wants to come off macho a lot. He's in the rap world, and just really kind of macho. And so when he was placed in this movie in vulnerable situations like this, he didn't really know what to do, because he still wanted to play the man. But here the man, he's being tied, he's being chained to a chair, and I'm in control of the scene. And I think it made him uncomfortable because he couldn't, like you said, exercise his arrogance in the scene, but also I think it made him nervous because he just didn't know how to play it. I don't think he knew at that point in time how to play vulnerability. And so I'm throwing him everything I have, and all he's doing is just playing this macho thing tied to the chair. And there's this line he has in the scene, if you watch it, where I'm kind of going off on him because I'm trying to get information from him, and I get kind of angry, and he says, I think you need to go to anger management class. That was his line. And there was one point where he said that line, and I swear it was like, since Fuqua gave me the lead, it was almost like Doug and my character Bristol sort of just merged into one in that moment, and I got furious. Doug got furious because Jamie Foxx isn't taking this seriously, and Bristol's got serious because this cat's not giving him the information he needs, and he's being a smartass on top of it. So we merged, and I just ran up to Jamie, and I grabbed his face in my hands, in both of my hands. I have his head in my hands, and I'm like just a quarter of an inch from his face. And I don't know the exact lines that came out of my mouth because they weren't in the script, but it was something like, you're not very smart, are you? And I just started almost snarling at him in this moment, and I saw it. I saw him in that moment. I saw it in his eyes. He was finally reeled into the moment. And I think, I dare say, he was scared for even just a little window of time. What the hell is this guy going to do to me? And it worked. It worked the scene. And then the way they edited it too, I didn't mention this before, but I found out later that Fuqua really enjoyed it so much that he was in the editing room, and they actually added things. You'll never hear it if you watch it, but they added subliminal audio. So when I go and grab his face, they actually added a tiger underneath growling, and you don't hear it even if you're listening for it, but it's like so subtle, but it's subliminal, and it finally worked. If Jamie finally woke up, and I think it might have been from that point on that he started getting it more. He started getting into the rhythm a bit more. But hats off to Antoine Fuqua for opening that door and just allowing the trust, I guess, when you cast, to trust your actors' instincts after you cast them, to bring to the table whatever it is they can bring, their own uniqueness to the role, to the scene.
Yeah, Doug, and it's just coincidence, because I'm going to tell you right now, if you said to me off the air, or on air, you said, give me your five favorite directors. If he's not in the top 5, he's circling number 5. Like, he's just there. I love his work. I mean, even when people were shitting on King Arthur, I loved it. Tears of the Sun with Bruce Willis, who also has a reputation of being difficult on set. Shooter, Equalizer, you mentioned, Southpaw, Training Day. Like, I love all his work. I love his vision. I love what he does. For a variety of reasons that I'm not going to get into, he probably will not be a guest on the show. That makes me very, very sad, because, when people come on my show, I take good care of them. I research their lives. I make sure everything is appropriate.
Well, you should get in touch with his agent. That's a little off the record.
Is that how it works? Supposedly, yeah. All right. Well, I can think of 300 other reasons, but let's not go there. Okay. He's a phenomenal director. He is one of the best. He's one of the best directors on the planet. His vision and the way he approaches filmmaking is truly in the top tier. And I'm glad he treated you the way he did. So that's great, man.
I couldn't agree more. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, too, he came from a commercial background. I think he did a lot of commercials before he ventured into film, and maybe a couple music videos, but don't quote me on that. But he definitely has a certain style. He knows exactly what he's doing.
His vision, his vision is impeccable. I couldn't agree more.
I also have to say, I just forgot about this, but when we were shooting Bait, we were shooting Bait in Toronto, Canada, and the Green Mile had just premiered, and they were having a red carpet in LA, and I wanted to attend so badly, because it was going to be my very, very, very first red carpet premiere. But I was scheduled to work on Bait, and the producers and everybody, they were just like, "I'm sorry, you can't go." And Fuqua stepped in and he said, "The hell he can." And he rearranged the schedule. So, I mean, it was quick, but he got me flown in to LA. I jumped in a car from the airport. I went to the red carpet, because it's a long haul from Toronto to Los Angeles. And I went to the red carpet. I made it. I got to sit at the premiere of the Green Mile. It was amazing. Afterwards, I got to hobnob a little bit. I couldn't go to the after party because they zoomed me back to the airport, LAX, and I flew back to Toronto so I could shoot then the following day. But if it wasn't for Fuqua, I would have missed out on my very, very first red carpet affair ever. And so I forgot about that. I'm grateful to him for that as well.
Well, he clearly sounds like one of your favorite people to work for.
Oh, yeah. I'd work with him again in an instant.
I got to tell you, Doug, before we go on to number 3, I'm in the mood right now for Swedish Fish. Anyway, So, I'm so hungry.
Your audience right now, they're just scratching their heads.
They're probably scratching their heads when I said the Shatner thing, so they're probably just continuing to scratch.
What's going on here?
Yeah. All right. So who's third, Doug, on your list?
All right. Well, third would be, in chronological order now, Jessie Nelson. She directed a movie called Karina, starring Whoopi Goldberg and Ray Liotta. And I worked with her in a movie called I Am Sam with Sean Penn, Michelle Pfeiffer. And I have to say that my experience shooting I Am Sam was amazing. I had one of the best times in my life shooting that movie. Lots of adventures with Penn and his whole crazy posse of rock stars, and Kid Rock and Lars from Metallica, and just like it was kind of a surreal time for me, because I'm just like I'm acting with Sean freaking Penn. I remember seeing At Close Range back when I was in my mid-20s in the theater, and just sitting there going, man, watching that scene between him and Chris Walken, the end kitchen scene, and father and son, and just like going, oh my gosh, if I could ever do that ever, I just wish upon a star, and then there you are, on the set with Penn, and anyway, I gotta say, during the shoot, I really admired Jessie. She, she obviously knew what she was doing. She had a certain style. I can't say that the end product for me is my favorite, only because I'm not sure why. Well, actually, I do. I think I know why. Jessie shot I Am Sam almost all handheld, diced it up in the editing room. It's very sporadic. It's like the camera's moving in and out. It made me dizzy watching the movie. Seriously,
right?
I when I went to the theater to see it, I just felt nauseous. It was just like I just wanted the camera to stop and just like lock down and allow this beautiful story to unfold. And it was just, and I think she did that because I think what she was attempting to do was show the movie through the eyes of Sam and how he might see the world, being a disabled person. I don't know. I heard that was the rumor of where she was going, but I don't think it completely, even though a lot of people enjoyed and enjoy that movie today, and Penn won an Academy Award for his performance, it just stylistically, it just wasn't my favorite.
No, and the critics didn't like it, but the people loved it. Like, this was a movie, I remember the critics, I got to tell you, the one thing, and I hate doing this, making an interview, but if I had to rename my podcast, it'd be Monday Morning like Fan or something, because I am not a critic. If anything, I love movies. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm very rarely critical of people, but when I look at the critics in this movie, they kind of shit on it. But the people love this movie, and
yeah, everybody I've encountered said that they just loved it.
Dakota Fanning was nominated for Academy Award, I think.
Dakota, that was her. I think that was her very first.
Yes.
So, little kid.
Yeah, she's a great actor. I mean, yeah.
Yeah. I will never work with Jessie again, however, because I made the mistake. Apparently, there's the actor who. His name's Brad. He played. There were 4 friends of Sean's in the movie, and we were all playing disabled characters. 2 out of those 4 were actually the genuinely disabled. One of them, Brad, was the guy who had Down syndrome, and then the other one.
There's a Brad Silverman.
Brad Silverman. He actually has Down syndrome,
okay.
So he was one of the friends. And then there was another cat. I'm sorry, I can't remember these names. I don't know why, but he played kind of the big guy, sort of slow. He had a certain type of autism, if I remember correctly. And then there was the other actor and myself were actors playing disabled people. So it was just a mishmash. It was a 50-50 of the genuine deal and then actors playing disabled actors.
Right.
And what ended up happening, in a nutshell, it's a pretty detailed story, but anyway, I became friends with Brad. So after the movie wrapped, now mind you, Brad is, I think at that point in time he was in his mid-30s. Okay. But just the sweetest guy, and he lived in a home, with other folks with Down syndrome, I believe, and they're just very sweet. But anyway, Brad and I got to know each other, and I ended up calling him after the movie wrapped and seeing if he wanted to go out on a town with me one night. And he agreed, and I talked to the woman who runs the facility that he was staying at, and I said, are there any rules or regulations I need to know, before taking Brad out? Because, even though he is an adult, a lot of people with Down syndrome, they just come off very childlike, and so, I don't know, I didn't know a lot about it, but I just wanted to make sure I got him home at the right time and blah, blah, blah. And all she said was, look, there are no rules. Brad's grown up. He can do whatever he wants. The only thing is he doesn't drink alcohol. And I said, okay, that's good to know. She says, he likes 7-Up. I said, great. So I take Brad out to one of my favorite Italian restaurants in Hollywood, called the Stinking Rose. They make everything with garlic. And afterwards, I get this bright idea to take Brad to one of my favorite strip joints.
Oh, boy.
Because that's what I was doing back then. I haven't been to a strip joint in a long time. I have no desire to go to strip joints anymore, but we're talking like 2002, 2003-ish here.
For the record, this sounds like a movie in itself, Doug.
It is.
Okay.
And so we're at the Stinking Rose finishing up. I said, hey, Brad, do you like dancing? And he said, yeah. And I said, all right, I'm gonna surprise you. I'm gonna take you to one of my favorite places. And he said, okay. So we end up going to this place called Crazy Girls in the heart of Hollywood, Sunset Boulevard and La Brea. And I take Brad into Crazy Girls. And now Crazy Girls is not all nude. It's just topless, but still it's a strip joint. And Brad had the time of his life, and I had the time of my life being there with Brad.
Right.
He was tipping the girls. He was just drinking 7-Up, and just we were laughing and having a great time. I bought him a lap dance. I just thought it was just fun. It was just a boys' night out. I got him home on time. The next day, I get this call from Jessie Nelson, and she is furious, and she just rips me a new you-know-what over the phone, and she says, I cannot believe that you took Brad to a strip joint. What were you thinking? I mean, she was just... I've never had anybody just run into me like a freight train like that over the phone. And it took me completely by surprise. And I'm just kind of like hemming and hawing and saying, why? I just took him. And she said, I don't care. Don't you understand? Don't you get it? You took this innocent into a place like that. She said, Sean Penn wants to kick your ass. And I'm just like, what? And then she says, and I quote, "You will never work in this town again if I can help it." And before she hung up on me, I said, Jesse, first of all, I am gobsmacked. And I apologize if I did something wrong because that wasn't my intention. But I said, Jesse, isn't your movie about a disabled man who's attempting to get custody of his daughter and people are trying to stop him because he is disabled? Brad's 35 years old. Don't you think he can decide whether he wants to go to a strip joint or not?
Yeah, good point.
That got her even angrier.
Oh, no.
How dare you interpret my movie? Bam! She slams the phone down. Do you know I was banned from the premiere? And Jessie was so incensed that she actually cut me out of the bits and pieces on the DVD. You know, the extras.
Right.
You know, behind the scenes stuff. She completely cut me out. Wow. And she disinvited me to the premiere. And even though in my contract I could have went because it was in my contract, I decided to forego it because I just didn't want to, cause any more, problems. But my intentions were pure. And the repercussions were stunning. But it's a true story. And what's funny about it now, looking back, is that I think it was maybe a month later I got cast in my next movie. So Jessie wasn't too successful in her mission to blacklist me from Hollywood, but I know she'll never want to work with me again. Did
Sean Penn, did you get a chance to speak with him? Was he really pissed or no?
No, I don't know if that was true or not, but no, he never called me. He never called to, reprimand me, and I never actually bumped into him or anything after that.
The same actor who had a private meeting with El Chapo, I might add.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and holds up all those lovely communistic socialists in high regard, calling our current president the excrement of America, wants to kick my ass for taking my friend Brad, who's 35 years old, into a topless joint to drink some 7-Ups and tip the strippers and get a lap dance.
Did Brad have a good time? Did he was he aware of what was Brad's reaction to all this?
Brad, for all extents and purposes, from my point of view, was having a blast. He was acting shy, like he'd put his hand over his eyes sometimes. He'd never been in a strip joint before. But then he'd peek through his fingers and he'd smile, and I'd say, Brad, you want to give the woman $1? And he'd grab $1 and go up and put it on the stage and run back. And we had fun.
Right.
And I think what ended up happening is when he went back to his home, I think the woman who ran the home, probably the night or the next morning, asked Brad, so what did you do? Where did you guys go? Oh. And I think that was when maybe Brad started having second thoughts and feeling a little guilty,
right?
About seeing some women's boobs.
Yeah.
And so maybe I don't know how he expressed it to the woman, but she then in turn went to Jessie, and Jessie in turn, boy, did she ever come after me.
I like how you described that he was peeking between his fingers, which he had over his face. He was trying not to see it, but yeah,
Yes.
I don't know. Like that seems petty to me. I don't know.
It is petty, and it was really ridiculous because, I mean, again, like I said, the whole theme of I Am Sam is trying to convey that even a man who is disabled, as Sean Penn is in the movie, has a right to be a father and be treated as an adult
Right.
in our society,
Right.
not like a child, not like an irresponsible child. And here they just turned right around and went against, in my opinion, the whole theme of the movie for taking me to task.
Yeah, it makes it
for having a good time with Brad.
Her conversation makes it very, very kind of ironic and yeah.
Very ironic.
Yes.
Anyway, that was my experience with Jessie. Wonderful time on the set. Not so much after we wrapped. I don't really think she went on to direct much. I know she did like an episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm, and she had her fingers in some producing as well. I think she produced that movie Fred Claus and maybe a couple others. But anyway, that was my experience with Jessie, and probably my last experience. My first and my last experience with Jessie.
So what did you have, or what do you have for your number 4?
DJ Caruso is a director I worked with in a movie called The Salton Sea. DJ directed one of my favorite movies, Disturbia. And I don't know that he did much after The Salton Sea and Disturbia. I think he went on to do a bunch of television. He directed a bunch of episodes of The Shield, which was one of my favorite shows. And but DJ, again, was one of those directors I just adored working with. Because, again, he just gave us license to run with it, and trusted our instincts. And he was more a visual director than an actor's director, so to speak. So I think he was kind of enthralled with his cast and allowed us to play and go where we needed to go. And it's an amazing cast. I mean, Val Kilmer and Vincent D'Onofrio, Anthony LaPaglia, and a bunch of others. So I was in really good company. Kind of a fun sidebar story is that Frank Darabont produced The Salton Sea, and we were at actually, while they were casting for The Salton Sea, we were at an Academy Award dinner because The Green Mile was up, right? So I went to this dinner, and I'm sitting next to Frank, and rumor had it that DJ wanted to cast me in The Salton Sea, and I would be playing opposite Val Kilmer. And Frank, even though, we had a blast on The Green Mile, and he obviously enjoyed working with me, or so it seemed. At this dinner, I brought it up, and I said, "Hey, Frank," I said, "what's going on here? Because I hear DJ would like to cast me in The Salton Sea, but you're not too keen on it. How come?" And he looks at me and he says, "Doug," he said, what I think about you as an actor. I think you're a phenomenal actor. But listen, we need this role that we're casting, the Morgan role. He's kind of a dirty cop in the movie, an undercover cop. He needs to be Val Kilmer's equal as far as age. He needs to be in the same age bracket. And I said, "Well, Frank, how old do you think I am?" And he said, "Well, you're like in your probably like late 20s, right?" The reason he's saying this is because I lied to Frank when I went in to audition for The Green Mile. I was 39 years old when I auditioned for The Green Mile, but I didn't want Frank to know that,
right?
Because I didn't want him to subconsciously put that, have that in him while I was auditioning. I wanted him to think that I was actually in my 20s. So when they asked me my age, I lied and I said I was like 27 or something. And I happen to always look a bit younger than my people around my real age. So Frank bought it hook, line, and sinker. I also went in with a Southern accent. When they asked me where I was from, I said I was from South Carolina. And I lied my way through this audition. Now, I don't know if that had a bearing on Frank casting me as Percy. In other words, had he known I was 39, had he known I wasn't really from down south, would he still have cast me? Maybe, probably, I would hope to think, but I just wanted to cast the illusion. So here we are, fast forward at this Academy Awards dinner. Frank's thinking I'm in my late 20s. Val Kilmer's 40.
Right.
Well, I'm 40 now. And I said, Frank, how old do you think I am? He said, well, you're like in your late 20s. I said, Frank, I'm 40. He said, you are not. I pulled out my wallet, and I took out my license, my driver's license, and I threw it down on the table. And he picked it up, and he looked at it, and he said, with a big smile on his face, he said, you son of a bitch. And the next day I was cast in The Salton Sea.
That's great.
The grand illusion of Hollywood.
So before I ask you a little bit more about DJ, so there's two actors I wanted to ask you about. One I've heard, and I don't want to sound like TMZ or like one of those trash publications, but how was Luis Guzman to work with?
Well, I don't know, because I didn't really have a lot. I didn't have anything with him, actually.
Right. Okay. All right.
So we may have ran into each other like once on the set, coming and going. But honestly, I didn't have any interaction with Luis.
And Val Kilmer, strong actor.
Oh my God, I was so honored to work with Kilmer. I mean, he's from another planet. I don't know where he's come from, but I mean, he's one of the quintessential actors, character actors, actually, character leading man actors of my generation. Everything from, basically becoming Jim Morrison in The Doors.
That's right.
Possessing Jim Morrison. Playing Doc Holliday in Tombstone, playing Batman. I mean, are you kidding? But he is a little bonkers. You don't know. Like, he was playing a drug addict in The Salton Sea, so you never knew if he was playing it or if he was really doing the drugs. You know what I mean? That's the kind of thing. It was always like, and finally, like, I went up to LaPaglia at one point, and I said, when Val talks to me, I don't even understand a word he's saying. And LaPaglia said, Doug, that's because Val Kilmer is from planet Val. He's talking Valinese. So, but it was just a thrill to work with him. And I gotta say,
I don't think he's ever been nominated, Doug.
I don't think so.
That's ridiculous.
I know. Well, especially for Jim Morrison deal.
Yeah, how about he was great as Doc Holliday? How about he was phenomenal in Heat? Wow.
Yep.
Wow.
I know. No, I'm telling you, the one of the greatest actors of my generation.
You know what he's a little bit like when you describe him, right? So if somebody just tuned in or fast forwarded the podcast, you know who almost he sounds like from your description? He almost sounds a little bit like Nicolas Cage.
He's better than Cage.
No. But I mean, like, because I believe they both have, like, he's better than Cage. First of all, I agree with that. But I think Cage is a lot better than people think he is. I mean, he's an award winner. He's a guy that people think is definitely from another planet. kind of gets shit on more than he should. That's my opinion. I could be far off on that, but
I don't know. I don't know if I would necessarily agree with you about that they're in the same echelon. I mean, there have been a handful of things that I've liked Cage in, but I've never really seen him go deep under like Val does.
Right.
Kilmer is the kind of actor where he goes so deep, I think it's really difficult for him to go through the experience. It's not something necessarily fun for him until it's over and he can shed the skin. Because, I mean, he really does go there. And, man, I was just, I was like, it was like brushing up against an acting god for me, working with Kilmer. I mean, and he was also, when you got through when you could sort of decipher some of the Valinese, he was actually kind of a cool cat. I mean, he was very soft-spoken, gentle, sort of. He was no diva. He wasn't throwing fits. I don't know. I enjoyed working with him. And LaPaglia. I love Anthony LaPaglia, working with him as well, because we played partners in the movie.
Interesting.
But yeah.
What do you have for, is it 5? 5?
Yeah.
What do you have for 5?
Yeah, number 5.
Yeah.
Bob Rafelson. I did a movie with Bob called No Good Deed, starring Samuel L. Jackson, Mila Jovovich, Stellan Skarsgård, and myself. And Rafelson, I'm telling you, it was an honor to work with this cat. I mean, your young audience out there might not know a lot about Rafelson, but the older generation will definitely know his movies. 5 Easy Pieces. He worked with Nicholson several times. 5 Easy Pieces, The King of Marvin Gardens, the remake of The Postman Always Rings Twice, Blood and Wine. The cat's 86 years old now. He was basically known as one of the founders of the New Hollywood movement. Back in the 1970s, when all of these independent filmmakers like Bogdanovich and Coppola and Friedkin and Altman and De Palma and all these guys were making sort of what we would consider independent movies now, they were butting up against the studio. They were butting up against the Lions, the Lions Den, the studios, and they were just going off the rails and making movies that they wanted to make, including Rafelson. So when I got a shot to work with him, I mean, I was really excited. And what's really cool about him, because he does come from old school, he goes about his business old school. So the casting director, Victoria Burrows, is pushing me at Rafelson. I went in, I got on tape. Rafelson didn't know who I was. He wasn't sure. He was hemming and hawing. And Burrows said, "Bob, take a lunch with Doug. Sit down and talk with him. I think you guys will connect." So Rafelson agrees. We meet in a coffee shop off Sunset Strip, and he's an odd-looking duck. He's very tall. He sort of looks like a Big Bird from Sesame Street or something, but sits down, shock of silver hair. And one of the first things he says to me, he says, "If you want to work in my movie, on my set, you're going to show up on time, and you're going to know your lines." And I said, "Bob, guaranteed." And we sat there, we shot the shit for a while, and after it was over, he stood up and he said, "Then let's shake on it." And it was old school Hollywood. We we actually took a handshake and sealed the deal.
Right.
This is before contracts were signed.
Safe to say, Doug, that Rafelson would have handled the situation with Jesse Nielsen a tad bit differently, right?
I kind of have a feeling he probably would have, coming from old school
guy. Yes, for sure.
And working with Jack Nicholson.
Yeah, the Postman, all right, right.
Right, the bad boy of Hollywood.
Right.
But yeah, it was a sheer honor to work with Bob, and he was very, based on his history, his resume, you wouldn't have known it on the set. He was very cordial. He was always a gentleman. He, I don't know. He was just, we all just loved him. And I was really rooting for him for this movie because it was sort of his swan song. Unfortunately, No Good Deed is sort of like no good movie for many, many different reasons that I'm not going to get into. But we did our best, and Rafelson did his best at the helm. It got a limited release, theatrical release, and then it went away. And there you have it. But
and he kind of just disappears, Doug, after this movie too.
He does, yeah. I thought when I recently looked him up, when I went to his IMDb, and I realized that he really didn't do anything, I think, except a film short or something, a video, I don't know, after No Good Deed. And I thought maybe because of his age, he had passed on. And because we haven't kept in touch or anything, right? And so I wikied him, and no, he's still alive. He's 86 years old.
Yeah.
So I don't know if he just stopped working because he was like enough, or if he fell ill, or I don't know what his story is. But all I know is I was thrilled to work with him before he assumedly took his hat off, his director's cap off.
I must look at Doug. I must look at as far as for research and guest purposes, I must look at IMDb and probably 20, 25 a day just in research. He's got his is like none other I've ever seen. It's just like he's done a lot of different things and he just disappears. I've never seen anything like this.
No, it's really weird. That's why I'm wondering if he either consciously just said, I'm just done, I retire, or if, God bless me, he fell ill. I don't know. I don't know what his story is, but yeah, you're right. He just sort of vanished after No Good Deed.
Interesting. Is there a sixth on your list, or did you stop it at 5?
Yeah, there is, unless we're going way over.
No, we're good on time. No, I just didn't know how many you had, but that's absolutely, we're good.
Yeah, and not a heck of a lot to say about these others. I'll just kind of encapsulate them because there aren't like crazy stories connected to them like the Jesse Nelson story. But my next director is Donnie Most. And most, pun intended, people would know Donnie as the character of Ralph Mouth.
Wow.
On the old Happy Days.
And guest
series.
on the Monday Morning Critic.
Did you interview him?
He has been on the show, yes. He's a phenomenal singer, FYI.
I know. I love Donnie.
He seems very, very sweet. I interrupted you, but I got really excited. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I didn't know he was on your show. That's awesome.
Yes.
Donnie, oh man, one of the sweetest guys I've ever met, not just in Hollywood, but on the planet. I mean, just the sweetest guy. I wanted this movie. I did a movie with him called Moolah. Kind of an independent sort of movie, but it was me and Daniel Baldwin, the bad Baldwin brother, and William Mapother. If people don't know him, he was in Grudge, I think, and some other really well-known movie that did really well at the festivals.
Oh, Booger was in it from Curtis Armstrong was in it.
Curtis Armstrong is really a very colorful cast.
Yeah, it is. It's got a great cast to it.
In the Bedroom? Was that May Pother? Is that In the Bedroom? Does that ring a bell? Anyway, May Pother is actually Tom Cruise's cousin. But anyway, here's Donnie Most's big shot at making a movie. He's dreamed about making a movie because Ron Howard, who also was on Happy Days, who played Richie, of course, went on to become this huge, famous movie director, right? And I know, Donnie never shared any of this with me. This is all conjecture based on knowing the man and just, I just can only imagine how badly he wanted this movie to work and put him on the map as a director so he could climb the ladder like Ron Howard did. And even though Moolah, I recommend anyone watch it. I think it's a delightful movie.
Right.
But it went nowhere. And I was so disappointed, mostly for most. I was disappointed because, gosh, I really, really loved working with him. He had the patience of Job. On that set, being a first-time director, it's scary and intimidating, and but he was just so charismatic and understanding, almost to a point that it was almost his Achilles heel, because like Daniel Baldwin he was off the charts. This guy has like ADD. Daniel Baldwin. He's just all over the place. He won't shut up on the set, and Donnie's too nice of a guy to tell him to stop talking so he can start directing. And so it would come to me, because Daniel would be like cracking jokes. Did you hear the one about da da da? Did you hear the one about Donnie's trying to direct us? And I'd be like, Daniel, because Daniel's like a child or something. You have to spank him to get him to shut up. I'm like, Daniel, shh, take it down. Enough's enough. Let Donnie direct. And Daniel then would just sit there all contrite. Oh, sorry. And then Donnie would try to direct us, and then Daniel would start revving up again. And
Efren Ramirez was in this movie, who was Pedro in Napoleon Dynamite. It's got a pretty good cast to it.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, it does.
And the premise was really sweet too. It's just a sweet, bittersweet, very funny, I think, movie. But it is a comedy. I would have to put it in a comedy category. But just has a great ending, a good moral to it about greed and the love of money. And I don't know, it was one of my favorite movies to shoot. We shot in Salt Lake City, and Donnie's one of my favorite directors, even though he didn't go on to direct anything else. Yeah,
he's a very kind man. He was so nice to me with the interview and so forth. That's
the best word to describe him. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Kind.
Yeah,
he's kind.
And I gotta say, Treat Williams is like the stereotypical leading man from every '80s movie. Like, right? He's got the look.
Yeah.
It's got a great cast. Like this movie, I haven't seen. I've seen.
Have you seen it?
I've seen 90% of your movies. I have not seen this movie.
All right, you got to put it on your list.
Oh, I'm in. If you can fun. Send me, I'll buy it. Yeah, absolutely. This movie looks great. I'm reading the synopsis as you're speaking. This looks fantastic.
Yeah, it was really.
It looks like one of those movies that's just a lot of fun. Like, it's just a lot of fun from start to finish.
It was, and speaking of Treat, he and I we got to really chew it up at the end. We have a great, fun scene together at the end. It's, I don't know. Who knows why movies fly and why they don't? But like I said, I really wanted it for Donnie because I know how hard he worked on it, and and to get there. And I know it must hurt deep down inside. I mean, I'm sure he's happy for Ron Howard, but I get the impression. No, don't take this to the bank. This is just me again speaking from the outside looking in. Donnie never said any of this. I'm only guessing. But Ron Howard is so powerful in Hollywood. You think he could have helped Donnie with a step up a little bit.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
But Howard had nothing to do with this movie. This was all Donnie. And so, that's just part of Hollywood. I don't really enjoy.
One of the observations I made, and I think it was him, and I said this to him, I said, people always associate you with Ralph Malph, but, like, you've done so much, and he really has. Like, I'm telling you, when you get a chance, Doug, listen to him sing. He's phenomenal. He's very, very good. Like, it's not just.
Well,
like,
didn't he play a role on that? What's it called? That musical that hit.
Oh yeah.
It's not on anymore.
Oh, what
about
is that?
The school, the school, the high school that does all the musicals.
Oh, Glee.
Yes. Yeah, wasn't Donnie on?
He
Glee?
was
like,
on.
He played
that.
Yeah.
But, he was very appreciative that I made that observation, and, I would agree, I don't know, man. When you get a chance to listen to it, he's a very good singer, and he's just part of my process is to see what people have done in other interviews. I like to, just kind of watch what people do and say, and he's very kind to like, there's questions that people were asking that were ridiculous and almost insulting, like the same, like, bullshit Happy Days questions where it's borderline just not being nice. And he was very kind to those people too, the ones that didn't do the research and so forth. But yeah, I liked him a lot. Big
he's
baseball
great.
guy.
He's a stand-up guy.
Yep, he's one of those
stand-up.
Yes, and he's one of those people that seems nice on TV, and he's equally a real life. He's same way in real life. So yeah, I'm glad you said that. I'm very happy that you said that.
Yeah, he's a good guy, family guy. I love Donnie.
So where would you go with the next one?
Well, you know what? I've got 5 more on my list, but I'm going to cut it down to just 2 out of the 5 because I think we're going a little lengthy here. Because honestly, just a few of them, I can't say much except that, I, for the most part, really enjoyed working with them. I'll just name them off really quick. J.T. Petty directed a movie I did called The Burrowers. Very strange movie. It's a Western meets a horror movie, if you can imagine, about these monsters who live under the ground and pull people down under the ground. That takes place in the old Wild Wild West. William Mapother, by the way, was also in The Burrowers. Anyway, it was directed by, I think it was his first movie. No, it was his second movie, but his first movie didn't really do anything. I can't remember the name of it, but his name's J.T. Petty, the director, and I enjoyed working with him. That's all I can say. I just enjoyed making that movie. It's a weird movie if you watch it. You should watch it. It's just weird. It's a strange premise, but
I feel like I've seen The Burrower. I feel like I've seen this movie, like recently too.
Really?
Yes, I feel like because I'm looking at it now. I've seen this because I remember Clancy Brown's performance in this movie, but
Clancy was in it. Yeah,
Shawshank fame. I think I've seen this. I'm going to rewatch it though for sure.
Yeah. It's kind of it's a creepy movie, like at first, and then unfortunately, because they never show the creatures until the very end, and then as soon as the creatures show up, I just go because your imagination is far more powerful than the actual visual of these creatures.
Yeah.
When you hear them in the middle of the night and what they're doing and stuff, and then you see them, it just doesn't work for me. It just got really, really cheesy. at the end. But visually, I got to say, for a young director, I thought JT pulled it off as far as like creating that Western dusty feel, that old dusty Western feel. I really thought he captured that in this movie. And then blending the two genres is very strange. I mean, it's like Wild Wild West meets horror. I mean, it's just wild.
Right.
Lexi Alexander is my next director. I worked with her on Punisher Warzone, and I got to say, man, I loved working with Lexi. I got to give it up to her. She had it's a Lionsgate movie. She had Lionsgate on her back the entire time. They wanted to change everything. They wanted her whole vision, and she fought tooth and nail on that movie. And one of the things, she went to bat for me because here's a little side story on how be nice to the ones on the way up, because you never know. Remember, I told you I worked with on Batman and Robin, right?
Yep.
And it was just a very short 45-second scene with Uma Thurman, and I'm the leader of this gang, underground gang, neon gangbangers, and we go up against Uma, and we have a big fight scene. Basically, that's just basically the scene. Joel Schumacher directed, and I didn't know this at the time, but one of my gang members, because we're all under neon paint, I don't recognize anybody, and I'm thinking most of them are probably just extras and stunt people because it's a fight scene. Well, one of them was Lexi Alexander.
Wow.
And she started out as a stunt person. For some reason, and I don't know why, Joel Schumacher fired Lexi because he said he wanted the gang to be all men. I don't even know how you could tell she wasn't a man under all that neon, but for some reason, Schumacher fired Lexi and replaced her. And I don't remember this, but I apparently gave Lexi a card, or I said it in person or something, but I think it was a card because I think she brought it up later, and I think I just said because we rehearsed the scene, many times, and then she was let go, and so I think I got a card to her somehow, some way. I don't know how, but I just said, "We're gonna miss you. So sorry, that you had to leave. It's not going to be the same without you." It was just I just felt like I wanted to do it. There was nothing behind it. I wasn't trying to hit on her. I didn't even know her.
Right.
I just felt bad for her that she got fired. So it's not, now fast forward, it's just like 10, 12 years later, Lexi Alexander is directing this major motion picture for Lionsgate called Punisher Warzone. And she wants me to play one of the leads. And they sent me the script, and at first I really didn't see myself in the role. I sort of saw a Steve Buscemi-ish character in the role. And so I ended up passing at first. I get this call from Lexi Alexander at my home. She got my number, and she said, "I want you in my movie. How do I get you in my movie?" She's German, right?
Yeah.
She's still got a bit of that accent, and she very, very strong-willed. And I said, I said, well, I don't know. I like the script. It's fun, but honestly, Lexi, I kind of am envisioning Steve Buscemi. She goes, "Fuck Steve Buscemi. I want you in my movie." She said, "I don't want no Steve Buscemi. I need someone like Anthony Hopkins. I need you. I need an actor to play this role." And by the end of the phone conversation, she had me wrapped around her little finger. And I'm like, okay, I'll do the movie. Well, she goes to Lionsgate. Lionsgate said, no. We'd need him to come in and read. And she said, Doug Hutchison is not going to come in and read for you for my movie. She said that would be an insult for me to call him and tell him to come in and read. He's playing the role. And that was her through the entire production of Punisher Warzone, going head-to-head with Lionsgate, toe-to-toe, banging heads the whole way, and trying to make the movie she wanted to make. Anyway, I didn't find out until about halfway through shooting. We were all at some bar or some place we shot it in Montreal, and she came up to me, and this is like, she just kept this to herself the whole time. I don't know why she didn't say it straight up or straight off, but she came up to me and she goes, you don't remember who I am, do you? And I said, what are you talking about? And my Rolodex is going back, thinking, well, did we meet? I don't know. I don't remember. And she said, you don't remember this, but I was the one in Batman and Robin when Joel Schumacher fired the gang member in your gang. I was that gang member. And she said, and you gave me the kindest note when I left that set. I said, that was you? She said, yes. And she said, and I've never forgotten that. And she said, and I followed your career ever since, and I've dreamed of working with you. And now it's happening.
Wow.
So hats off to Lexi. She had a hell of a time trying to make this movie with Lionsgate. They just really gave her a hard time. I don't know what the actual conflict was ultimately, but there was certainly two different visions for this movie, and Lexi just would, like a tiger, she just was fierce. She would not let go. She'd throw tantrums on the set and storm off if she had to, whatever, to meet with Lionsgate execs, to ream them out, say, this is my movie. She's got a lot of smoke, man, a lot of fire.
I'll tell you where some of that fire came from. She's a famous world karate and kickboxing champion, so that's probably where some of it came from.
That's exactly. And that's why ultimately she was one of the stunt persons in that fight scene in Batman and Robin.
And I'm looking at her. She's very pretty. She's very accomplished. She's one of the movies she directed is legitimately one of the best movies I've seen, and I want to say, a good 10, 15 years, and that's Green Street Hooligans. That is phenomenal.
Yeah.
She casted a young Charlie. I want to say Charlie Hunnam was in that. A young Charlie Hunnam, Elijah Wood, taking a chance there. I mean, who thinks of Elijah Wood when they think of soccer or soccer/football? But who thinks of Elijah Wood in that role, right? I mean,
I know.
Yeah, she's definitely somebody who's still working. She has her shit together,
Yeah, I mean, I really do think shooting Punisher took a lot of the wind out of her sails. Because it was so exhausting for her. But I do know after that, I think she went into TV. She did a lot of the directing on shows like Arrow and Supergirl, and I think she did one or two SWAT episodes and stuff like that. And so she still continues to work, but I don't know. I think maybe after that experience on Punisher, I think she was just like, I cannot work with these studio people. I cannot. They're just a thorn in my side.
I feel like this is the second director we've talked about where Holly, maybe more. There's more, but certainly Frank Darabont and her, where Hollywood has, I don't want to say chewed them up and spit them out, but not been very kind to and maybe beat the enthusiasm out of. I'm not going to speak for these people, but it seems like Hollywood did not do these two any favors.
No, I know. And it's an old story, directors butting up against the studio heads. It's not new. It just, same story, different times. But
very talented, yeah, very talented.
Very. And so the rest of my list, I worked with Jack Bender, created Lost. On Lost, he directed about 5. I was in 8 episodes. I think he directed a handful of those. And then Russell Mulcahy, he's an Aussie director. I worked with him on Give 'Em Hell Malone, starring Thomas Jane and
I like him. Doug. I like him a lot. Thomas Jane.
Thomas Jane.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was the original Punisher.
Yep.
Russell directed Highlander, the Highlander movies. And then I think after Give 'Em Hell Malone didn't really go anywhere. Ving Rhames was in it as well. But I think Russell went on to do TV as well. I think he did Teen Wolf and a couple episodes of the Lizzie Borden Chronicles and things like that. But all I remember about Russell is he was just, a good old Aussie, shooting a movie. And I know Thomas was really struggling with alcohol at the time and holding out production, and that was kind of a mess. But I guess he cleaned up his act after Give 'Em Hell Malone. And I think he went on to do that series Hung on HBO.
That's right. Yeah, that's
Hung.
Right. Yep.
But yeah, it was pretty bad there for a while. I kind of felt bad for him because he was in so deep, and he didn't show up one day to work, and the producers in the studio were pulling their hair out. They didn't know what to do. The only thing that saved Thomas is that his agents talked to him and said, "You need to pay the studio and the producers for that entire day out of your paycheck.
Wow.
Or they're going to fire you." And I think he did, because he obviously stayed in the rest of the movie. I personally have a soft spot for Ray Stevenson, who played the Punisher in my Punisher Warzone.
Good actor. Yep.
I just really thought he embodied the Punisher far more than Thomas Jane did. But Thomas has done some good stuff.
Holy shit! How do you say Russell's last name, Doug?
Mulcahy.
He has done a lot of music videos, with some pretty epic names. Elton John.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Whoa. Rod Stewart, Def Leppard. Holy shit.
He can't.
Wow.
I think he started out in video as well.
Queen, Billy Joel, the Rolling Stones. Wow. Done some pretty impressive things.
Yeah.
That's an eclectic list, my man.
Yeah. And I just want to, before we sign off, I just have to give kudos to a new director I just worked with last October. His name's Ricky Borba. It's Borba, Ricky. And this was his very first movie, called The Talking Tree. Sweet script. I actually got to play a good guy for once in this.
It only took 40 years. Jesus Christ.
Exactly. But I got to just a shout out to Ricky, a first-time director. Just again, like Adani Most, one of the kindest, sweetest guys, and I pray that his movie sees the light of day. I don't know, you never know where movies are going to land. There were no stars in it, really. Independent film, but such a beautiful story, brings tears to your eyes. And he was just impeccable to work with. And so I'm hoping his movie flies for him.
The movie's well cast. I mean, the premise sounds great. It's got George Christie in the writing credits, who's been on the Monday Morning Critic before.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, this is something I hope takes off, because it definitely has, from talking to you off air, has a great premise to it. There's no reason why this movie wouldn't be successful. It's definitely got a good chance if they release it. It's got to get released somewhere, right, Doug?
Well, yeah, but it doesn't necessarily guarantee a theatrical release. It could end up on a network. It has a feeling, that feeling of not the cheesy Hallmark movies, but that kind of genre where it's a feel good movie, but it's got some really tender moments to it. It's just a movie with heart, and I think Ricky was the best person at the helm, because it is. I won't give anything away here by telling you this about the movie, but a lot of the core of the movie is about a young man who is losing his mother, and Ricky. This script literally fell into his lap. I think it was maybe only a couple months after he had just lost his mother. So he had a huge affinity to the script, and I think that's what really was the best part of making this movie with him. It was almost cathartic for him, and it was also really sweet to be around that. He just kind of wanted to, everybody wanted to take care of each other on the set almost, and including Ricky. He wanted to take care of him, because he's sitting there watching these scenes, where his son is with his dying mother, and you look over at Ricky directing the thing, and tears are streaming down his face, and you know what's going on,
Yeah.
And so anyway, it was a very again, a wonderful experience. I had to work with him, and beautiful cast, beautiful crew, beautiful movie. I do too hope it sees the light of day.
If you, I never asked this, especially on the air, but if you ever get a copy of it, please send me a copy. I would love to screen this and review it. It sounds everything like you say it is.
Definitely, yeah. It's in post right now, and so they're still editing it together. Ideally, it's a Christmas movie, so ideally it would be coming out at the end of the year, in December. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed that it will. I don't know about the distribution. Like I said, it could get a theatrical release, or it could end up on a network, or on Netflix, or Hulu or something like that around Christmas time.
All right, so let me end the interview with this. So, and very briefly, tell me, is there a part, and you don't even have to answer this, is there a part that you were very close to getting that you did not, that had a director on it that you were like, I wish I had that opportunity to work with him? Like, you auditioned for something, or maybe they decided, you know what, you weren't right for the part, whatever, where you were like, God damn it, I really would have really embraced the opportunity to work with this director?
Boy, that's a good question. I'd have to go back into the Rolodex of my mind. Who directed the what was the movie? It was X. Ed Norton plays the skinhead white supremacist.
Oh my gosh, I know who you're gonna say, and I got a funny story. But oh my god, how funny is this? I'll tell you exactly who that is.
What's the name
that
of
is
the
Tony
movie?
Kaye. That is Tony Kaye, and Tony Kaye is, I think, who you're talking about.
Okay, what's the name of the movie?
American History X.
American History X. Yes. Yeah, I auditioned for Tony Kaye, and I went in. I actually read with Ed, because I was auditioning for the role that what's his face got. This is a while back. I'm sorry. I'm just
no. That's
pulling
okay,
blanks.
man. No, thank you for bringing it up.
Yeah. Who got cast in it? It was kind of a name actor. I'd have to go to IMDb and see it. Maybe you can pull it up. But anyway, I went in for that particular role that this other actor obviously got cast in because I'm not in the movie. But I really was... I guess I'm just pulling that one out of my hat because that was one of probably several movies that I had hoped to have been cast in because I loved the movie, and I would have loved to have worked with Ed Norton and with Tony Kaye. So maybe that was one of them. Tony Kaye and American History X.
Yeah, that's a good one, man. That's a really good one. So yeah, I mean, I love the list. I mean, 2 parts. We went a little long here, but it was all interesting, I thought. I mean, that's pretty interesting list, my friend.
Yeah. I've had the pleasure of having, brushed up against some very great directors, some, colorful directors, some directors who never want to work with me again. Actually, probably only that one. That was the only time I ever had like a sketchy experience on a movie with the director. I've really had it. It's been a joy, honestly, to work with all of those directors that I mentioned.
Doug, I can't thank you enough, and I'm very psyched for our next episode.
Right on, me too. Thank you so much once again, Mr. Derek, and I look forward to hearing this breaking down when you get it up and posted. So
good deal.